Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'll be covering some examples of strange closed or abandoned stations across Melbourne. And with that said, let's get started. At number 5, we have Werribee Racecourse. This station is located to the west of Werribee Station, past the end of the electrified line. This station opened in 1884 with the purpose of serving, you guessed it, the Werribee Racecourse. There is little information about the station's usage during this era. We know the Werribee Racecourse itself closed for a period of time starting in the 1890s, but seemingly the station remained open during this period and continued to show up on maps until the racecourse's reopening in 1915. Despite the fact that no races were happening at this time, and therefore no trains would have stopped here. The station continued to operate until the 1980s, with only a handful of trains stopping there per year whenever there was a significant race on. During the 80s, the Werribee line was planned to be electrified. Originally, this electrification was intended to extend to Werribee Racecourse, opening up the possibility of regular passenger service at the station, which was now beginning to see development spring up around the western parts of the suburb. The government even went so far as to build the gantries used to hold up the overhead wires, yet the actual wires themselves were never strung. In order for Werribee Racecourse to be used, a crossover would have needed to be added to allow trains to terminate and continue the other way back towards Werribee, yet this was never built. Even after this failed project, the station officially remained open until 1995, when a new standard gauge line was built, passing by the side of the station and making it completely accessible without having to cross the tracks. Today, the station is hidden away along the back streets of Werribee. The single platform is run down and overgrown, and the platform sign is still covered in the same graffiti as it was nearly 20 years ago. You can barely see the R for racecourse poking out. Someone has taken out a section of one of the fences, which allows me to get a better view, while still intending to stay away from the rail corridor. I definitely think it would be nice to get another station here in Werribee, but there would need to be a lot more improvements to the area in order for a rebuild and reopening of the station to be viable. I also think most people aren't too keen on horse racing these days, although the Werribee racecourse is still seemingly continuing to operate to this day. At number 3 we have Sydenham. This station initially opened in 1859 along what is now the Sunbury line. At the time, this was a V-line station and it functioned as such, operating passenger services for nearly 150 years. In 2002, however, it was announced that the line to Sydenham was to be electrified. The issue was, at this point Sydenham station was in a bit of an awkward location, right next to a busy level crossing and quite a walk from the area's main attraction, the Water Gardens shopping centre. As a result, it was decided that the station would be moved, and a new Sydenham station was to be built 600 metres south. That was originally what the plan was, but then the nearby shopping centre offered the government money in exchange for naming rights. The government caved, and when the new station opened, it was officially known as Water Gardens. This was despite the fact that the word Sydenham was literally built into the brickwork of the building. Initially, the name Sydenham was kept as an alternative name for the station, but was officially dropped in 2012, and the station is known as Water Gardens to this day. As for the old Sydenham station, the city-bound platform was simply left abandoned and continued to sit there for years. The original level crossing was removed and replaced by a giant overpass in 2018. The station building and part of the platform surprisingly remain intact, but have understandably fallen into disrepair. Underneath the giant overpass is an artwork where two level crossing barriers are tied together in a knot, representing the removal of the level crossing, which is unrelated to the station but still really cute. At number 3, we have Williamstown Pier. If you looked at the Williamstown line, it may seem that it would be impossible for it to be extended any further. Williamstown Station is already so close to the end of the peninsula. Yet surprisingly, this line did in fact used to extend one station further. This stop was called Williamstown Pier. Yes, a fourth station named after Williamstown. The station first opened in 1859 and moved to its final location in 1905. The primary purpose of Williamstown Pier was to serve workers at the port in Williamstown, but it was still open to all passengers. There's still a bit of industry here at Williamstown, but nowhere near as much as there used to be, and most of the area of the former Williamstown docks has been turned into a parkland. When I was filming here, I was under the impression that the station was located here, near this big anchor, but I was mistaken. The former location of the station is actually right in the middle of this giant car park. How nice is that? Williamstown Pier is probably the station on this list that had the highest chance of staying open. It continued to carry passengers into the 1980s, even despite its proximity to Williamstown Station, making these some of the closest stations on the entire Melbourne network. Unfortunately, in 1987, a derailment happened on the sharp curve into the station. Nobody was hurt, and yet despite this, the government decided the best course of action was to close the station. This closure went down with surprisingly little resistance. I'm sure most people simply realized that they could just walk the extra 500 meters to where Williamstown Station was located. Don't worry, at least they got themselves a new car park. This is also why Williamstown has this seemingly useless footbridge running over the tracks, when you can just go around. There used to be through running trains here, and this would have been a pedestrian crossing. At number 1, we have Rupert's Wood. Not counting station rebuilds, this is the most recently closed station in suburban Melbourne, having been closed just 20 years ago in 2004. Yet despite this, barely anyone has heard of it. Rupert's Wood opened in 1879 as a private station for guests at the nearby Rupert's Wood mansion. The platform continued to serve guests and events at the mansion until 1927, when the property was turned into a boarding school. The station would later start seeing regular use, with students using it to access the school. These school services began in 1962. Somehow, this arrangement continued operating all throughout the entire 20th century. By the year 2000, Rupert's Wood was the last surviving station of its kind, only being used to service school traffic. This would finally come to an end in 2004, with the station being closed as part of the Regional Fast Rail project. A project which didn't actually make regional rail that much faster, and kind of just made everything worse. Rupert's Wood is today completely inaccessible to anyone who is not a student at Salesian College. I was able to get a view from following this little path to the side of the tracks before reaching a fence, where you can just barely see the edge of the platform peeking through. Would not recommend trying this yourself though. The platform is only 24 meters long, meaning only one carriage of the train would be able to open its doors at any given time, and it doesn't really have any discernible features beyond that. I will say, however, that the area around here is very nice. And with that said, thank you for watching this video, huge thanks to all of my channel members for supporting my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.